welcome to Film Strip. These podcasts are spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films in review. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
Welcome in, friends. I'm Jay from the Film Strip Podcast, and what you're about to hear is a review of Leprechaun Returns, the latest edition of the Leprechaun series. That was one of our big series here on Film Strip back in the day, and as a soft launch back with the podcast here, Brian and I decided we would release this to you now before we do our official launch later this spring. Brian and I recorded this as part of another podcast venture that I had started at the end of late last year before we decided to bring Film Strip back, so it'll sound similar, but it'll be a little bit different than what we've had in the past, but I think you'll be able to follow along and enjoy the review just the same. So, again, thanks for downloading, and I'll be back at the end for some special announcements, but for now, here's Leprechaun Returns. And we're here to visit an old friend today. It's time.
Oh boy.
It's time to talk about Leprechaun Returns. Released in late 2018 and premiering on the Sci-Fi Network in March of 2019, this movie follows the tradition of 2018 Halloween and being a direct sequel to the original while ignoring all of its past incarnations. Leprechaun Returns stars Taylor Spritler, Cy Bennett, Pepe Sunganunga, Mark Holton, and Lyndon Porco as the Leprechaun, directed by Steven Kostanski. Joint project between Sci-Fi and Lionsgate, which owns the franchise. Shot over 6 weeks in South Africa, and don't know anything about budget or any of that kind of stuff, but the director originally was brought on board to do effects because that's sort of his bag, and he's done a lot of that, and really got into it, got the directing job, but also did the special effects on this one. And I guess before we get into Leprechaun Returns, Brian, we need to review our sordid history with this series.
Oh, do we ever? We decided one St. Patrick's Day, it would be a brilliant idea for us to watch The Leprechaun. Makes sense, right? We'd had Jennifer Aniston as the star, so we're like, oh, it can't be that bad. Well, let me tell you, it wasn't that bad. It was worse. And we decided that after looking into it, there were several other Leprechauns available, that we would, every Halloween and St. Patty's Day, release a new review of one of those episodes. And we got through them all, including the ill-fated Leprechaun Origins that was done by the WWE Films department. That was just wretched. And now we're back because we found out, what was it, about a year ago, that they were going to be releasing a brand new Leprechaun in the vein of the old Leprechauns, right?
Right.
Not the crappy thing that WWE decided to do with it, but in the vein of the old Leprechauns, where it's kind of a comedy horror movie, if you can call it that. And so we decided that even though we had shut down Film Strip and everything else, we had to find a way to do a review on this show because, I mean, it's just our bag, right?
Right. Well, we've done them all, and why not? And as a part of that, you know, I launched a YouTube page earlier this month, March of 2019, and there's different playlists on there. There's the Time Out Anymore Popcorn playlist. There's the Gridiron Breakdown playlist for when I do football stuff with some of our friends. And I decided to, you know what, we'll put out some old Film Strip shows from time to time. So there's a Film Strip Archives playlist, but there's a special one just for the Leprechaun shows. All 7 of those old reviews. You won't find them anywhere else. You'll only find them on the YouTube page. But if you can go there and rip the audio, knock yourselves out, and listen to them again, we'd really appreciate it if you actually would listen to them. We put out the old Leprechaun shows, and Brian, I gotta be honest with you, it's been a long time since I'd even listened to any of those or paid any attention to them, because we did those and ended up, I don't know, when was that last Leprechaun? 2014, 2016, something like that? I can't remember. And
it was a few years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I just hadn't thought about it in a long time, and so I went back and re-listened to some of those, and I had this grand idea, like, I'm gonna rewatch the whole series, and then I was like, well, I'm just gonna rewatch the first one again. And I mostly watched this one twice. I didn't rewatch any of them, but I did listen to our old reviews. And in the midst of wondering, you know, what we were doing at the time and some of the things we were saying, I did remember most of the movies. And I find it funny that neither one of us liked the first one. I think my summation was, this movie sucks. And then the second one was even worse. And the third one was a decent idea that just falls apart in the end because it's all in Vegas, right? And then the fourth one's in space, and it's, I mean, there's a princess who gets naked for reasons. I don't know. But then, like, they took a sharp turn upward. The In the Hood and Back to the Hood in particular are, like, awesome compared to those other
compared
movies.
to them, yeah.
Right. Like, I was digging, especially Back to the Hood is fun. That is a fun horror comedy. We both like that one. And then Origins came around and they tried to be serious with it. And I understand the inclination there. We've been as dumb as we possibly can be with this series. Why not try to be scary? And they just failed at it miserably. You know, like there was nothing there. And I think that proves the point. And that's what everybody involved with this realized. And Mark Jones, the original creator, for a short time was involved with this, realized you can't be just scary with this. You have to be scary and funny. You have to balance that out. It's got to be
campy.
Yeah, you've got to play to the camp, right? And they put a little bit of money behind this. I don't know how much. I mean, there's rumors of like, $2 million, $2.5 million. But I gotta say this, like, Sci-Fi has stepped up their game. You know, for years they were like, Sharknado versus Octopus 4 and, starring Tiffany. And they still do some of that stuff. But they actually put in like money and resources into producing decent content now. Now that they went from, went to SYFY. And every now and then they put out some decent stuff. And so I was willing to give this a shot. I had read stuff about it, and everything I read about it, Brian, I mean, remember the string of those last ones on Rotten Tomatoes? They were like zeros,
Yes.
Like this was like 50% or something. And I thought, well, gosh,
it's got like a 54% approval rating on the IMDb even. So it's quite wild.
Yeah. I mean, and my thought was like either one or two things has happened, or maybe both things have happened. One is our tastes have become so diluted that we're just like, sure, we give everything a pass nowadays because everybody's depressed and thinks the world's ending every 5 seconds on social media, or they actually made a good one. And so I watched this, and thought, okay, this will be for a fun episode. Well, we're getting our stuff together podcast wise, and lo and behold, they yanked it away from everything except iTunes and Sci-Fi Network. So I ended up renting this on iTunes to rewatch it for this review.
And I waited, luckily, for the Sci-Fi airing. So my airing was the Sci-Fi airing. So there may be things, obviously, in the original film that I didn't get to see because they aren't good for TV. Who knows? But the gist of it was there. I watched the whole thing, and we'll get into that. So I'm looking forward to this review.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't know that I know enough about it because I didn't see the Sci-Fi version. Because I don't know enough to be able to tell you what the differences are. I don't think they're terribly a lot. I mean, they seem to, Sci-Fi gets away with being able to do some of that because they put it on after prime time and their cable and all that kind of stuff. So I think they went for more of, I don't know, the shock factor or whatever you want to call. But I was really interested to see how they were going to do this because I read that they had approached Warwick Davis again, and he told them absolutely not. Because
did you hear his reason for that?
He says he's not doing horror movies anymore until his kids are grown, but his kids are like teenagers or something. So
yeah, it was just a weird reasoning for him to not do it. He didn't think he wanted to do something that he wouldn't allow his kids to watch.
Right, which I'm like,
it's your job.
But this is also kind of kiddie friendly. I mean, it's not. There's
some gore and stuff in there that I wouldn't really say is kiddie friendly, but overall, I think you're right. This is a harmless horror film in most aspects.
Yeah, I mean, compared to some things, like, you wouldn't let your kid watch, like, Jigsaw or something like that. Yeah, but this, I mean, I would say this is on the lighter fare, but I get it. I understand that's his reason or whatever. But to his credit, too, he didn't have this major flip out about it. He was like, you know what, go ahead, right ahead. And even Jennifer Aniston, who I'm going to tell you, not the most discerning actress, okay? Nowadays, I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the stuff she's done the last few years, but it's not like she's turning them down. They actually approached her to reprise the role. Like they said, could you come back and do a cameo? And the word is they couldn't come to a financial agreement. And I'm like, no, duh.
Right.
I'm sure, look, this was put together so fast. I'm sure they knew what was going on with Halloween, that idea. And they said, you know what, let's go and get our star back. And I'm sure she was like, no thanks. Thanks guys, but no thanks. But she did publicly say, I actually like the fact that you are trying to play to what the original was about. You're not trying to just, do Leprechaun for Leprechaun's sake. So on that note, she wasn't on board to do it, but she was game to let them try. So they tried. And I got to admit, I was really curious. What are you going to do? Because I found out Ozzy was going to be in it. Mark Holton, who I only really know from this, and I think he was on Pee-wee's Playhouse, and I've seen him here and there, but he's not an actor.
He's been in quite a few things, actually. I mean, he's a character actor.
Yeah.
He's in quite a lot of movies.
So I thought, okay, they got this guy back. I hadn't seen Lyndon Porco. I don't watch Little Man or any of that stuff, but I understood like they were going back to a design that seemed much more in line. The trailer sounded like, Warwick Davis doing lines. So I thought, okay, you know what? I can give this a shot. The lead girl, Taylor Spreitler, I'm not a big Melissa Joey fan, but yes, I have watched it. I have a wife who likes this kind of shows. So I knew her from that, and I had seen her in a movie called Amityville Awakening. That had actually been on the shelf for a while, and it finally came out where you could rent it, and I watched it a year or two ago, and I thought she was fine in it. So I thought, okay, this works. She doesn't really look like Jennifer Aniston's daughter, but okay, whatever. They went with it, and the idea of like it's now a sorority house out in the middle of nowhere. I thought, well, I can't wait till they explain that, and then we'll get into it. But I went in with the lowest of expectations, but actually intrigued by what can they do with this property.
Yeah, I mean, I came in with no expectations, right? The lowest of low expectations, because it's the Leprechaun, and other than, like we said, the Back to the Hoods and In the Hoods, the Leprechaun series went and took a nosedive almost every time from 2, 3, 4. It was just, yeah. So I wasn't coming in with any expectations, and I came in with an open mind to see what they're going to do here. I love the idea of going back to that house and the original setting and coming back with this. And I like the idea of ignoring 2, 3, and 4 and the Hood movies as well, because let's face it, they can be ignored.
And let's also say, like, who even knows what the continuity is, right? Like, we even talked about that on the old shows. Like, is this one before this? When does this happen? Like, it's hard to tell, right? The only thing I'm disappointed in is that I'll never get the backstory of the one-armed, one-eyed, one-legged man that brings the statue into Vegas in part 3. Like, I still want to know how that happened, but I guess I'll just have to go on wondering. I'll have to write some fanfic for that. But I guess we should do a plot summary. Spoiler warnings if you haven't seen this movie or didn't catch it on Sci-Fi. We're about to spoil the heck out of it. So, I mean, if you're interested in watching it, go watch it, and then you can come back to the podcast. Or if you don't care, then you listen on. But I guess we should go ahead and tell folks what the heck Leprechaun Returns is about. So, as best I can sum it up, Brian, 25 years ago, a young woman named Tori, was played by Jennifer Aniston, and a group of friends defeated an evil leprechaun by shoving a 4-leaf clover in its mouth and throwing him down a well before setting it ablaze with fire. Though I seem to remember there was a slingshot and F.U. Lucky Charms involved in that, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So today, that property in rural North Dakota is the site of an eco-science project of a sorority from a nearby college. Ozzy, from the original film, is still in town running his handyman business, and he's surprised to meet Tori's daughter, Lila, who, after her mother has passed away, just transferred and joined the sorority's project, along with new friends Rose, Katie, and Meredith. While looking for his cell phone that he dropped while getting Lila's luggage, Ozzy is sprayed by water from the well, allowing the leprechaun to reconstitute himself by busting out of Ozzy's stomach, along with that gold coin Ozzy swallowed 25 years ago. Yes, that's a question mark. What? While the girls and a couple of guys work on the eco house, Leprechaun searches for his lost gold, taking out people one by one. There's lots of killing and mayhem. Rose, who's leading the project, reveals she found the gold hiding in an old beat-up vehicle, kind of like they did in the first movie, and used it to fund the house project by pawning the gold coins in Bismarck, North Dakota, at one of those we buy gold places. So Lila, Rose, and Katie blow the leprechaun up by making him swallow water mixed with clovers, but instead of killing him, it just turns him into several littler leprechauns, and one of those takes out Rose with Chekhov's Golden Shovel Award before, reforming into his full self, and Katie and Lila lure him to the basement, led there by the ghost of Ozzy, I think, and set the house on fire, barely escaping before the whole thing goes up in a massive explosion. But once again, the leprechaun is still alive as we see him hitch a ride to Bismarck, presumably to look for those gold coins that were pawned as credits roll, and apparently you smell a sequel.
I definitely smell a sequel, Jay. I think we are going to be revisiting the Leprechaun in another couple of years. I have to say, I don't see that ending happening and them not going back to it.
Well, Lyndon Porco, who plays the Leprechaun, says he is totally game. If they want to do another one, he's down. He doesn't even like horror movies, but he is on board. So like he's literally scared of them, he says. But let's get into this and just talk about the characters a little bit. And I think he's the one you got to start with. He's the Leprechaun. Big little shoes to fill, as all the jokes she can make, but look, Hornswoggle, or better yet, the CGI that they used for Hornswoggle in Leprechaun Origins was bad. Like, we agree that was like a rabid bulldog or something, not a leprechaun.
Yep.
The thing I will say is that it would be very easy for Lyndon Porco to do a caricature or a parody of what had already been, and instead I think he finds the voice of the Leprechaun and he gets all the limericks down. I thought he actually did a pretty good job as the green little evil monstrosity.
I'm gonna say it. I thought he was better than Warwick Davis.
Wow.
I really liked his interpretation of the Leprechaun, and I love the upgrade to the Leprechaun look. He looks a lot more evil, a lot more disgusting. I really was impressed with the Leprechaun actually in this movie, as far as the look and the character that was played. I thought it was good.
Yeah, we got to give a lot to Steven Kostanski. Again, not only as director, but he's doing the effects here. And he said he wanted to go for a Leprechaun that was somewhere between the look of the one in 2 and 3. And honestly, you know what it kind of looked like? The demon mask of one of the Circle of Thorn at the 5th season of Angel, the one that's played by Christopher, what's his name? I can't remember. The red one that is hooked up to it. Yeah. If you've seen Angel, you know what I'm talking about. He kind of looks a little bit like that mixed with the Leprechaun, but they've got like the sharp saw teeth back, and moreover, I mean, Lyndon Porco's Canadian. He's got the accent down. He's got the laugh. He's got the goofy rhymes, and he does it with the malicious glee that the Leprechaun's supposed to. I don't know that I'm ready to say he's better than Warwick Davis, because it's hard to not think about these movies and not think about Warwick Davis. But I will say this: he gives a really good performance, and I don't think we can discount the fact that this script is miles ahead of anything else that one of these movies has had, maybe since the first one, maybe of all time. I mean, this is a well-written film.
This is by far the best script that they've ever had for a Leprechaun movie. Everything made actual sense for the most part. I mean, the path that they took and everything, they tied things together, like bringing back some things like that old truck or whatever it was that the gold was hidden in. That's a tie back to them hiding it there in the first movie. That's something you wouldn't have really thought of. But then when they find it, you're like, oh, yeah. I remember them going out into the field out here and doing all this and that and everything else. And so I really liked that. I liked everything that they did here. They wrote a very good script as far as a Leprechaun movie goes. By far their best. Yeah,
we should say Suzanne Kelly wrote this, and she's done a little bit of acting and things like that, but she's also written a lot on like Ash versus Evil Dead, and she worked on some reality TV and stuff like that. So I think she captured this sense of really the youth too. Like the girls are totally believable. Their dialogue works. There's some of it that I think is a little much, but they also incorporate a whole lot of callbacks. And if we ever get around to reviewing Halloween 2018, one of the things that I didn't love about that film was how they went out of their way to talk about how they were ignoring all the sequels, but then they seemed to me to want to repeat a lot of the stuff from the sequels, except the family connection stuff. In this one, though, all the stuff they call back to and homage to, I mean, even down to Lila has different colored tennis shoelaces like Jennifer Aniston did in the first movie, and just little stuff like that I thought, they're paying homage without being hung up on the first one and being completely beholden to this lockstep myth, because let's face it, never had that. Right. I'll give Suzanne Kelly credit for writing a more cohesive thing. I don't want to play this more than I mean, she didn't write Inception. Okay. So it's not this genius movie or something, but for a Leprechaun movie, and again, in context of its own self, it's pretty good. But back to Leprechaun guy, I think they figured out real quick, we need to see him a little bit. He needs to do all the magically evil things that the Leprechaun does. It's all about getting the gold, because in there's the power. And I think the way he moves about everything works pretty well.
I would agree completely on that. I thought he did a fantastic job. The voice was perfect. I thought I couldn't really tell that he was a different guy, to be honest. I thought he captured the voice great. The movements and even the points where he was making the rhymes were perfect for what the Leprechaun was. Just weird timing on certain lines and some really good dingers in there that I thought were quite funny. The wife and I watched this and we giggled quite a bit throughout this movie at some of his limericks and comments.
There's lots to laugh at for sure. Mm-hmm. So going from him, Lila's sort of our next entry point, and I gotta tell you, I like this girl. She's actually, I liked her in that Amityville movie too. She wasn't the lead in that, but she's a decent actress. And I thought she did a good job of kind of playing different. Jennifer Aniston was the fish out of water. She was the girl from LA that moved up to the sticks with dad, right? Mm-hmm. And this girl has spent her life, taking care of mom for a lot of years now, whose mom has been sick. Presumably dad's out of the picture, and it's not the dad. It's not the guy, the hunky guy, from before, because the names aren't the same. Well, yeah, she ditched Nathan. She
You'd let me?
Yeah. Let's not go there. But yeah, but she's grown up, kind of isolated a little bit. So she's got a different perspective than her mother did, right? And while she's got some of the same interests, she's into ecology and particularly environmentalism and I mean, like in conservation and things like that, because that was something Tori was into. We kind of made fun of her because she's wearing leather shoes and talking about killing cows, right? Mm-hmm. But she's definitely more into that, but she's more believable. And I thought she was funny too, and she had a lot of spunk to her. Like she would sort of give as good as she got a few times. I do have some questions about her motivation because it seems to change randomly. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but just as a character, I thought she was pretty good. I mean, again, these movies haven't been loaded with great characters. They've never been loaded with great female characters, so she was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her acting in this as well, and I thought the character itself was great. And I really like the motivation for her, and I think the underlying motivation is not necessarily the sorority and the eco piece of it. It's to kind of learn a little bit more about all the things her mom told her about. To me, it makes sense because you got to remember that she's got mental issues. Apparently, according to all the doctors, she's kind of a nutcase after everything that went down. So she's probably told all of these stories to her daughter, and her daughter just kind of took them as mom's paranoia or mom's, brain not working quite well. And then all of a sudden the leprechaun appears, and all of a sudden she puts it together like, oh my God, everything my mom has told me all these years is actually true. Well, so to me, it makes sense.
There's two things there. Like it makes her really smart, which is a good character trait to have. You don't want somebody to be dumb as a character. But on the other hand, I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something here. Because what would have made this work better for me? Just to lay it out, okay? Because what they want us to believe is that Lila heard all this stuff, but never really, bought it. But now that she sees it, she just figures it all out. What would have bought better to me is that she did believe it. She was there because, well, I'm here because I know what's up. And like, she has this whole car ride with Ozzy, and he's like, you didn't tell you anything about what happened up there? Lila should have been like, yeah, she told me. I'm not really sure I buy it, though.
No, but I don't think she did tell her. That's the thing.
Really?
Like, I don't think that Tori actually told her daughter about this house in particular. She may have told her about the monsters and everything that haunt her and all that. But I get the feeling that she's there because this was the house that her mom and grandfather moved into. And she's trying to reconnect with mom because mom's just died.
Yeah, they do change a little bit. They retcon a couple of things here. One is that it was like a rental before that her dad and her were going up there for like the summer or something. And now it's changed to her dad bought the place for her. And a part of me is like, well, maybe that's just the cover for they both know what happened there and he bought it just to make sure somebody else didn't stumble upon the leprechaun. But
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I can let that go. Like I can forgive that plot point or give them that one if I have to. But
yeah, to me, Lila's whole character and reasoning for being there is to kind of try and reconnect with mom because mom just died.
That actually makes a lot more sense, and I had not read it that way. So that hearing you say that makes a lot of sense now. So, but I think we both agree Lila's good. Taylor Spreitler's good in the part. Like she's fun to watch, and works well as a final girl or
she's a great lead character.
Yeah. Yeah, she's good. Now, I'm gonna say something, and I'm leaving Ozzy out of this, but specifically Rose, Katie, Meredith, Andy, and Matt, who are our other named characters in this thing. I don't really know that they're characters as much as 3D cardboard cutouts of caricatures. Like, each of them has a single trait, and they sort of live through that single trait until they're either killed by the leprechaun or as in Katie's case, survive. Like, am I wrong there? They all seem a little thin.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you got to look at it like they're trying to get all of the stereotypical sorority girls, right? That's what we're going for here.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. These are not the stereotypical sorority girls. They're in an eco-science project.
Okay, yeah. But they're playing typical sorority caricatures, right? In an eco-science world. Well, you've got the bossy, organized, trying to take control girl. You got the drunk who just wants to have fun girl. And you've got the kind of skanky girl.
But here's the thing. The drunk who wants to have fun all the time girl, what's she drunk off of all the time? Like, she spikes herbal juice that they make, from cloves and clover and, leaves and stuff like. So
it turns it into alcohol.
What's neat is all of these girls are kind of smart, but they play. What's hard for me to reconcile is that they have these really smart characteristics, but they play them as the silly drunk, the flirty girl that just wants to get with the guy, the bossy girl who's wants to be in charge of everything because this is sort of her pet project. Like then you got the tag along in Matt. Matt is the tag along. That's all he's there. Well, Andy is Katie's ex and basically just there to hook up with her again. And Matt is the wannabe director, who I only remember for all the goofy director things that he thinks he knows, and the fact that he has a drone. And gets killed by the slowest drone ever. We'll get there. But yeah. I don't know, man. Like, to me, I didn't need them all to be, again, this is not a series known for deep character. But they were a little bit above Master P and his group for me. Like, I was like, I don't know. I'm really buying it. I didn't need, but the thing is, Lila's so good and the Leprechaun's so good, I don't really care either. Like, that's the other, I realized real quick, you're dead. The fact that Katie lived surprised me because I thought everybody's going to be dead except Lila at the end of this. It's fairly obvious.
It seemed that way, yes. But I mean, to me, I guess I kind of enjoyed the characters for what they were. I mean, they were there to be sacrificed, and we all know that, right? But you had to have something, and I like kind of where they went with the characters. I love the fact that we're bringing the Leprechaun into the culture of today with the cell phones and the selfies and all that crap.
So Walkman and a camera all in one. Yeah,
that's my favorite line of the whole movie, right there.
That was funny, and the fact that Meredith takes a selfie with him, right there. This is the second movie I've seen in the last year where the men are written and played like the shallow tag-along characters that women often are in these movies. And the other one,
this was definitely a woman power one.
Yeah, but the guys are played like the arm candy, which is a different twist of things. And that's also in a movie called The Simple Favor, which is also how that book is written. So
if you think back to the first one too, though, it kind of was similar.
Nathan kind of was arm candy, but he had something going on. But you had the kid and you had Ozzy.
Painted houses.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they've also changed one big thing. They've changed Ozzy pretty big. Ozzy was under the belief that he needed money so he could get his brain fixed. So at least Ozzy's like a normal human being now.
Well, is he though? I mean, he still seemed kind of strange. He stayed in town. Right?
Yeah, but where the heck is he going to go? It's everything he knows. It's what and he seems to be happy. So,
I guess. I think I don't know. Ozzy seemed right to me. I mean, this is a guy who went through all that crap, right?
Right.
Lived, and basically made the best of what he could do with everything. And what does he do? He's a taxi service.
Well, he's a handyman. He's kind of the everything in town guy. That's what he is.
Which of a town of what, like 12 people.
Well, for all we know. But I mean, there's the old coffee
The gas
shop.
station had nobody there, right?
There's the old coffee
bus stop.
shop that's broken down. There's the bus stop. I mean, there's enough to keep him sustained, obviously. What I like is that they actually kept like the ear damage that he had from the first movie in the makeup continuity. I thought that was kind of nice. I mean, again, this is not a series known for continuity, so even bother with that shows they're trying to do something here.
Absolutely.
And again, I thought he was good. I like the fact that Ozzy wasn't just a stumbling idiot anymore. I mean, he had a I mean, he's simple, yes, but he's not. All you gotta do is believe, and I can get surgery for my head. I'm doing a bad Forrest Gump, but I mean, that's kind of what he was in the first movie.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They gave him more to do here than that.
But it's also 25 years later, and he could have maybe had that brain help.
That doesn't. Okay.
We don't know.
I'm sitting here about to say that doesn't exist in a movie about leprechauns. So shut up.
Well,
Jay.
yeah, okay.
But I mean, really, I'm telling myself to shut up. So it's an extended cameo with him, which I think I kind of knew it was going to be.
I think it's good too. I think they needed someone to kind of tie it back other than the leprechaun, and I thought that was good. What did you think when you saw the house again for the first time?
Well, they did a good job recreating it because it's not the same place at all. But I mean, they even pull up like a still photograph, which I'm not kidding you, looked like somebody like printed the screen shot off of their television as they were watching. Probably did, and folded it a few times so it looked. But the fact that Lila had a picture of that, and so again, I go back to she knows nothing about this place other than, it's been in the family for a few years and now it's owned by the college. And I thought they did a good job recreating it, honestly. And I'll say this again, smart move by the director and everybody here. They said, let's limit the scope of this. Let's do it all around the house. Everything happens around that house except for the opening scene at the bus stop. Yeah. Which is wise.
Yep. Everything happens in the same area that most of the first movie happens, right? Other than the stupid hospital trip that the leprechaun somehow made it to in magic time.
Right. Well, and we also don't have the pogo stick and the buy gold in town place, which apparently is not Bismarck. So yeah,
that's true. But I do like the fact that they kept it, like you said, in the small area but the bulk of the first film was in that area. And I like that they kept this in that area as well. I thought they did a great job giving it the same look and feel as the original one did. The well was kept as damaged as it was in the end of the first one, which I thought was great.
Yep.
And so they've been out there doing all this planting and everything else, but nobody's bothered to put bricks on the freaking well. I thought that was awesome.
Well, they don't even have plumbing going when
Lava shows up. They have no electricity or anything. It's just been an abandoned house, which makes sense for what happened there, right?
Right, exactly. Like
nobody's going to want to move in there.
Yeah, nobody was coming over there to check that place out. So they've done a good job of keeping the material right. I thought they did a good job with the house. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I was down for
I thought they did a great job with the house. I thought they did a great job with the field area that they were chasing in. The old truck that they hid the money or the gold in the first time.
I think it's the exact same kind of truck too. If I'm not mistaken. Well, I think they totally recreated it. So but on one hand though, like that's really great. But on the other hand, I'm watching this movie as someone who's seen the other movie, a few times now. And sadly, and I feel like I'm on an amusement park ride at Universal Movie Studios where I'm going through the Leprechaun ride. So I'm seeing all of the things that remind me of Leprechaun or that were part of Leprechaun, but did they really serve the story? And that's a question we can answer as we go through the review.
Well, but I think, the way that they did it was well done. Like they're trying to escape, right? Then they get distracted and crash the car. Just so happens to be in the same area that they were in the first movie. I think that's a great way to do it. If you're going to do callbacks to things like that, I thought it was a great way to do that.
One thing they didn't call back to, even though they do a lot of comedy, and a lot of this is played for laughs, and it's wink and the nod, and again the Walkman and camera joke and all that stuff. There's nothing as silly as the skateboard and multiple shotgun round that we saw. There's nothing goofy. Like there's nothing just outright goofy in the movie.
I think they tried to make this a little more serious and left the comedy to the limericks and things like that.
Well, it's the comedy of being able to wink and nod at itself, right? I mean, again, the drunk girl Meredith is like, I'm seeing little people in the there's a miniature person in there who really hates certain kinds of music or something. Like she has some goofy line like that. Like it's all self-referential and aware and sort of squeamish in that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the wrong impetus. Again, no. I just wonder, like, can that sustain an entire narrative? And I'll tell you where, just for me, things started to fall apart a little bit. We get about, I think it's when we find out that Meredith makes a deal with the devil, almost literally, that once the leprechaun finds Lila and realizes that that's Tori's daughter, he's got some sort of, I don't know, Jaws to the Brody's relationship to that girl, and now he must have her. So he makes a deal with Meredith that he can get to Lila in some way or another. And Meredith sells him out. And that to me, I don't know, like that's where it started to fall apart for me, like a little bit. I thought, I don't know that I buy that. Like, what about you? I mean,
well, she's drunk, so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I went with it. I thought it was fine. And all he did was say he wouldn't put his hands on her. And I love the fact that he calls back to that and then just starts shooting her with sprinkler heads.
She does get the best death in the movie, yeah. I think, with the sprinkler to the mouth. And
basically stoned to death, yeah.
Yeah, that it's shooting at her, though, but it's still like sprinkling at the same time. It's doing the interval. That was kind of funny. We haven't talked about, I do need to talk about, though, how the leprechaun is rebirthed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Ozzy gets sprayed with the water, right, which is, I guess, is infused with the leprechaun. And
he does say at one point that if you don't get rid of the whole leprechaun and one part exists, you can come back, right?
Right.
So somehow and probably the fact that Ozzy's got this damn gold coin in his stomach for 25 years.
Okay.
The leprechaun, whatever's left of him, sensed that and was able to get enough power to spray him with the water.
Yeah, I had read online, people talking about, said, yes, the magic of the coins, because he does drop that the more of his coins he gets, the more powerful he gets. They've had that in other movies. That's in line with, I can go with that. It's the fact that the coin doesn't go anywhere for 25 years. The first time I saw this, honestly, I was like, really? But now, watching it a second time, I thought, you know what? Okay, if the coin's magical, maybe it wouldn't go anywhere. It just stayed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when enough of that water got into Ozzy, got through his pores or whatever, that it was just enough to rebirth the leprechaun. I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw this, I thought, oh, this is lame, but I guess they had to bring him back some way. Watching it the second time, I thought, you know what? I kind of like it. It actually works. So I give it a pass the second time around. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome, too.
It's very gruesome.
With him coming out.
Yeah, I did not need to see...
You're thinking Alien, and then it's like Alien plus 10.
Well, it was Alien, but it was also like Nightmare on Elm Street 2. If you remember the guy birthing out of the wall, it was very much that. But it's very gross. It's very grotesque. So obviously the gore factor is there.
The best thing about it is the fact that later when Ozzy appears as Ghost Ozzy, I guess you can call him, he's holding his damn intestines in his hands.
Right, like
he's got to carry him around.
In the afterlife, he doesn't get off with it. I read that the reason that happened, that was not in the script originally, but that the director liked working with Mark Holton so much that he convinced him to hang around for a few extra days in South Africa and shoot those scenes. Like, so there's really no reason how that ghost worked. That is never explained. That is a huge problem for me. Like, I needed something to explain that. And you can't lay it off on everybody that the leprechaun kills is in limbo until, he's vanquished. Well, then where the hell is everybody else? Right?
Exactly.
The guy that cuts in half should be walking around in half. That was a good
The lawnmower guy should be there.
Right. All of that. Right. Yeah. Like that doesn't work for me. So I
guess that doesn't make any sense. But to me, I felt like it was a figment of Lila's imagination.
I guess so,
because nobody else could see it. Yeah, nobody else could see him. She's the only one. So to me, it felt like he was a figment of her imagination, and she was just calling back to him to try and remember how to find whatever he mentions to her at the beginning that if anything were to happen, the answer is in the basement.
Right. What is exactly in the basement, Brian?
The map to the gold.
That's what it is. It's the map to the gold. You're right. Okay.
Yes.
That's what it is. All right. So that's okay. So let's.
Which I don't know if that's really the answer, but to me, that's the wrong answer.
Actually, no. If you need to get rid of the leprechaun, you got to give him all of his gold. Here's where to find it.
Yes.
That
leads me again to one of my favorite pieces of the lore of the leprechaun is that he was a cobbler, right?
Right. Oh, the shoes?
All these shoes are lying around the house, and he sees it, and he has to pick them all up.
Of course. I think he has some line about one of them wearing Crocs, and he's like, that's a gift of fashion to kill her or something like that. So.
That's a gift of fashion to get rid of, and he tosses them in the trash.
Yeah. So which is
but
funny.
Then again, the other piece of folklore that was really great is when they finally hand him the gold, which, if you remember correctly, in the first one was in this bag. This one's in kind of almost a dish, isn't it?
It's a cauldron. It's
cauldron,
like it's like the cauldron from part 3, which they also lay in like that iron will hurt a leprechaun because as we find out, Lila's wearing a necklace that's supposed to look like a piece of his gold, but it's actually a piece. But
it's fool's gold.
It's fool's gold. It's actually a piece of iron, which is why it burns him. But the pot's also made of iron.
Well, yes. And now, question: was that laid out anywhere in any of the other films?
Oh, yes.
I couldn't remember that.
I remember distinctly it's from part 2 because they try to put him in a.
I tried to forget part 2 very much so.
I re-listened to our show, and that's how I know that because I did not.
Well, that's clever then to actually bring that back into the thing. Because I was like, why would iron?
It would be clever if they actually played by the rule. They don't.
To me. Well, I guess. To me, having it be fool's gold would make sense because it's fake gold and he thinks it's right, and that kind of hurts the leprechaun. That makes a lot more sense than it being because it's made of iron.
I mean, you're talking about the woman power angle, too. Like, the fact that they fool him by putting the gold on top of a bunch of tampons and, sort of fool out with that joke. I was like, really?
That also leads to the best scene where he's counting the damn coins again. I love when the leprechaun counts the money.
And he's still shining shoes. He gets blood on his shoes. He's like, oh, gotta get that off of there. There's that. I mean, okay, we got to talk about how these people get killed off, okay? Because we talked about Andy, who's there just basically to get with Katie. He doesn't screw in a solar panel right because he thinks he knows everything.
Which she berates him for.
Well, this is what you get for mansplaining, is basically the rule of this, because it slides off the house and does a good bisection of him. And I'm always down for a good bisection.
It's because he did such a poor job that the leprechaun was able to flip out the screws that he put in.
Right, exactly. So but again, he's useless, but that was a really good kill. Really,
holy cow.
A good looking effect for a cheap movie. That ain't half bad, No,
not at all. I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, you have him. Meredith, as we talked about, gets killed with the sprinkler. We talked about that one. Matt, the wannabe director, gets killed when the leprechaun jumps on top of his drone that he's been using to shoot aerial footage with, basically, and slowly comes into him at a tree and cuts his head off. That was the slowest kill ever.
Not just the slowest kill, the dumbest kill. Like, you had all that time in the world to move out of the way. They didn't set up anything that said that he was trapped by the leprechaun to that tree.
I know. It was not.
So why not move?
I feel like there was like a page of like, and the leprechaun uses the drone to cut his head off, and they were like, I don't know.
How are we gonna do this?
Just stand up against the tree, dude. We'll figure it out. And this is what they got. It was bad. It was a bad.
That was
kill.
the worst one by far. Yeah.
But he was the would-be boyfriend Delilah, which the whole point of that is that she's going to have to do this on her own. We know that, or at least not with the help of any dude. It's going to be from her and her friend Katie, really. But Rose actually helps out a lot. But then she, they said, I called it Chekhov's Golden Shovel Award. They set that up in like the first scene in the house at night. She's like, that's my Golden Shovel Award for the project. I don't know.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you're going to get that in the face probably. Like, I knew that even then. And sure enough, they find a way for her to trip on it and go right through it. And again, another very gory death, but a two-dimensional character killed by a two-dimensional piece of, the set
equipment,
and then that leaves our last people. I mean, Katie lives, which I was surprised by, but she gets some shrapnel in the back, but she lives, and Lila, who's gonna make it through it.
That looked pretty awful, didn't it?
I know.
Like she had a big spike through the back,
and the fact that she calls it out, like we should probably go. I'm losing a lot of blood. It was
well,
yeah, you're probably dead right now. Actually, you're probably in shot. Like, I don't know how you're even walking at this point, but
that looked pretty nasty.
Hella explosion. I will give this movie credit for the way they vanquished the leprechaun the first time. I liked the idea that we're going to hook up a bunch of the clover juice and we're going to run it right down this sucker's gullet. I actually did chuckle at the, Shamrock Shake coming up line. And it blows him up. And but I looked at the counter and I was like, there's 20 minutes left in this movie. So what just happened? I almost wish this was the way that they got rid of him instead of what they ultimately do. Because the whole point of this is so we can now split him into little mini. Can you be a miniature leprechaun? I guess you can.
Apparently.
Yeah. And now there's like 20 of them.
Multiples,
instead of just the one.
But he reconstitutes back into himself.
After he kills, because as we also learned, the more he kills, the stronger he gets. So once he kills Rose by making her trip on some goo or whatever, that allows him to reconstitute. And that's when Lila and Katie know we got to get him downstairs because Ozzy kind of tells us to get him downstairs, sort of. It's very strange.
Well, no, I don't think he did. He just told her that the answer to what's going on was downstairs. He shows up and it's kind of pointing I suppose,
or something. So, again, it's not very clear what is going on with that, but it's very strange. And they get him downstairs and they essentially get all the gasoline going and they light everything on fire because fire kills leprechauns, as we know. And
no, obviously it doesn't.
Well, it does temporarily. At least let them get away. And it also hit whatever natural gas line they had going into that place because that house goes up like the house at the end of Critters. I mean, it's kablooey, son.
It lit up pretty well. And to be honest, I think they were standing a little close for something to blow up like that. But
yeah, they apparently were. I mean, that is why she got shrapnel damage. Katie did.
She should have got a lot more than that. But
they should all be dead on the ground at the end of this.
Yes,
but that's not what we got.
I mean, when I saw the thing go up in flames and everything else, and everyone start to leave, I knew that he wasn't dead. Right? You knew that, right? You knew he wasn't dead from that.
Well, no, I thought this is just the temporary way to get away. The fact that he comes up out of the fire later and then has a sound like Bismarck or bust. That was a good.
That was great.
That was a great ending joke, and the fact that they didn't make me wait through the credits to see it, I liked because I thought if you make me sit through a credit scene, I'm gonna. If Samuel L. Jackson rolls up in here with a mission, I'm gonna be mad. Because I don't need that.
I like the fact that he shows up with her. He's sitting there hitchhiking, and someone actually stops and allows him to get in the back with a bunch of chickens. I thought he was going to destroy the chickens myself.
No, I think he's just like, funny. I can snack on one of these before I go to the We Buy Gold place and get my gold back. Because they actually tell him where the gold is, or he hears that some way. So at that point, though, I'm kind of like, why is he not like, okay, ladies, if you give me a ride to Bismarck, we'll call it even.
Because he has to kill, man. He's got an instinct. He just needs to kill.
He needs to murder.
He can't let anyone live.
So, there's a college advisor or something that rolls up at the very end. I guess who was supposed to be shepherding the project or something. I don't know. I'm sure his thought is like, oh, I'm going to have a lot of paperwork and meetings about this. I mean, I haven't worked at college for 20 years. I'm
just not going to mention it.
I feel for this guy. He just lost his job. I mean, gosh, I hope he's vested because this is bad for him. That's where I went to. But they blow it up. I mean, they blow it up. They blow the leprechaun up. I got to say, though, man, I'm with you. I knew the fire didn't kill him. I really liked the Shamrock Shake kill, though. That would have been a nice way to get rid of him. But obviously, they want a sequel. So
I think what they needed to do was Shamrock Shake him and then find a way to get rid of all the parts because he's already told them that in order to kill him they need to kill every part of him. And if he's sitting there gooed all over the room, that's not gonna do it.
Sweeping him up, that's not a good idea. I mean, that's the funny thing. The leprechaun will tell you how to kill him. It's very Scooby-Doo in that way. Or James Bond.
Get rid of every part of me.
Yes, this is what you must do to vanquish me. Thank you. And then he goes and does it. So, I don't know. It was okay. The laugh at the end was, I guess, kind of worth it. Overall, though, what didn't work about this movie for you?
To be honest, not a whole lot. I'm going to shock you and tell you that this is my favorite one of the whole series.
Oh, wow.
I really thought it was well done. I laughed. I didn't get bored with it. So, I mean, that's a good thing. If anything, I thought that the Meredith character was a little bit shallow and boring. They kept making her out to be this evil witch, and then she's just a drunk.
Right.
Okay. Whatever. I thought that was kind of dull. But overall, I thought they did a good job with this. I thought the callbacks were great. I thought the tying it to the original was awesome. And I really liked the Leprechaun in here. So I don't know that I really had anything that didn't particularly work. I thought the limericks were kind of funny.
The comedy is good. The Leprechaun is fine in this. Like, they do a very good job with that character and everything else. I think the only thing I rubbed up against was just how, I don't know, how two-dimensional some of the side characters were. Though now after talking about it with you, I kind of get what they were going with, so it's fine. I didn't love the way they vanquished the Leprechaun the second time around. The fire thing seemed like just a little bit much. Like the Shamrock Shake, and then let's light the house on fire and walk away, and then we see him come out of the rubble like, told you had to sweep up all of me, or whatever. Like, and like if he reconstituted like T-1000 or something, which is basically what he does anyway, that might have made more sense. And they
did leave a lot of gold there for him, at least 10 pieces.
Yeah, right. And then the Ozzy ghost not being explained at all was kind of a problem for me, but
yeah, I get that, but I think I think that the Ozzy character was a figment of the imagination of Lila the whole time, and just something that she used to help her figure things out. That's really what I think of. And they were playing into the whole mental health issue with her mom being a part of her as well. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe we can go with that route for Ozzy. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, what did you make of the voice actress that they cast to do the Jennifer Aniston callback?
Terrible.
I thought it sounded like Jennifer Aniston.
I didn't think it sounded anything like Jennifer Aniston.
What did you think of the idea? It
sounded like an old lady. I thought it was good. It's a good way to kind of throw her off her game, which is what he was trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. He was trying to throw her off her game so that she would let him go, and then he would probably have killed her. And so how do you do that with someone like Lila? You hit her where it hurts, which is mom. Mom's just died. Like, mom has literally just died weeks or maybe a month ago, whatever it was.
Right.
So it's not like this is fresh. And to hit her with that voice, that was good, I thought.
I liked her response to it was, I wish you would just die already. Like she doesn't fall for it at all. Again, they make the Lila character
she started to, but then realized this is all bull.
I didn't read. I read that totally as she is just faking him out. Like I never bought for a second that she bought that. So, but again, that was a well-written character and well done. So, well, Brian, I think we're at the part of the podcast where we'll do something like we used to do in the old film strip days. Final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. Or for those who are new to the show, the larger the popcorn, obviously, the better the film. Brian, what are yours for Leprechaun Returns?
Well, I'm trying to think back here, Jay, and if I'm not mistaken, the first episode got a small popcorn, and then we saw the second episode and said, well, what can be smaller than a small popcorn? Burnt popcorn. Right. I mean, we came up with some really good new popcorn ratings for this series, so we did a lot. So thinking back, I'm trying to remember, I think the highest we ever gave one was a medium popcorn, and that was where the Hood movies. I think this is the best of the series. I really actually enjoyed this movie, and I would not hesitate to watch it again, actually. So to me, I'm actually going to give it a medium popcorn, and I think it's worth watching.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, that as far as it being worth watching, that it's a good effort. It's not... Look, this is not, Hereditary or Get Out or something like that. One of these elevated horror movies we've had in the last few years. This is really, those are, tremendous films. But in terms of its own context and what it comes from, and then what it tries to do, and even with all my little nitpicks that I had about it and stuff, I got to tell you something. My favorite one is still Back to the Hood. All right, because I just think that is incredibly funny. All right, it plays off all the stereotypes, has a good time with it, and then turns them on their head, and it actually works in favor of the protagonist. So I will give that movie a pass for that. But this movie is infinitely more rewatchable than any of the rest of them. I agree with you. To the point that rather than just rent the darn thing again, I just bought it. So I now own Leprechauns 1 through 4 and this one. I don't even own the Hood ones.
No, I don't know if you can buy the Hood ones.
I think you can get them on DVD from Amazon still, but so maybe if somebody wants to be nice to me, they can spend $1 and send me that. But I'm sure that won't cost me. I think we spent $1.99 on the 4-pack. But I I think this one's not only the best one, this is something to build from. Like, I joked with you, like, you smell a sequel. I think they're going to make one pretty soon, because why the heck not? And now that Sci-Fi owns Child's Play or is involved in Child's Play, I think we're going to get a crossover. I think we're going to see it. So I think we're going to get Chucky. And
Do you like those crossovers, Alien versus Predator and Chucky versus whatever, and Freddy versus Jason?
Freddy versus Jason is dumb. Look, the Alien Predator movies are dumb too, but they're dumb popcorn fun. So I will tell you that I haven't watched them and won't watch them again. There's certainly something there. This though, I'm just speculating. They may not ever do that, but even if they don't, so what? This movie works on almost every level. It's a fast 92 minutes. It's really only about 85. I think Taylor Spreitler's a really fun lead. I'm interested to see what she does next as an actress. She apparently is a big horror movie buff and loves these things, and said she would be in remakes of Rosemary's Baby until she's dead if she could, because that's her thing. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, down for it. Do it. Let's do another one. I would be very. And Lennon Porco says he's up. I think he's a fantastic Leprechaun and it's a lot of fun. And I may blow your mind here, but I'm giving this a large popcorn. I think it's totally worth it.
There you go. That does blow my mind, because I will tell you right now, audience, that the first thing that Jay said to me when he watched this is, that's 85 minutes I'll never get back. Yeah. So that proves that he sat and watched it a second time after seeing it the first time and actually enjoyed it.
I'm going to tell you, on a rewatching, it's a lot more fun. And I didn't go in hoping for high art. I think I just watched it and was like, I don't know. And then I watched it again. I was like, this actually ain't half bad. And
it's fun.
And I had fun with it. It was a fun experience. So yes, I think it's very fun. Again, my favorite is still Back to the Hood, but this is way better than any of the other ones. Like, if you never watched the first Leprechaun, I think you're okay. I think you can follow this one just fine.
I would say go back and watch it, just cause it's not a great film. I'll definitely say that. But of all the Leprechauns, it's one of the better ones. That's saying something. But just to get your context up, I think it's a good idea to go back and watch the first one and then watch this one. You can skip 2, 3, and 4. If you want to watch the Hood ones, watch those separately, because they really live in their own universe. They completely in their own universe. Watch those 2 separately, but watch 1 and Returns, and you're good. That's good enough for the series right there.
I would agree with you. I think this is a good way to follow through with that. And I'm glad we got to talk about this. And hey, if they make another one, sure, we'll come back and give it another swing and see what happens. My only hope is that if they make another one, make it a little easier to get to. Because I'll be honest with you, like in December, this was everywhere. You can find it, no big deal. Now, like, it was pulling teeth to try to find this.
Yeah, and my thing too is that these are made for DVD movies, right? That's what these are. So if Sci-Fi is going to be involved, premiere the damn thing on your channel. Don't put it out on digital on-demand crap first. Put it on your channel first. That's the way you should do it.
My understanding was, Lionsgate owns the property. Sci-Fi had the production and distribution rights, but in the wrangling of that, Lionsgate had first crack to put it out on demand, and decided to do that at Christmas for some reason.
There's your problem right there. If you're going to do it, either do it on Halloween or St. Patty's Day.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's when people are going to want to watch a horror movie, and especially a horror movie about leprechauns. And the second thing is, if they had the rights, then put it out on DVD, for God's sakes, or Blu-ray, I guess now, so that people can actually buy it. No. I get that we're in a digital age and stuff, but I don't want to sit there and stream the thing all the time. I'd rather have the DVD to pop in. That's me.
I agree. I have it available. Yeah, it's the only thing I can say. Please have the movie available where it's easier to see. And again, right now, folks, like, if you hang around for a couple more weeks, it'll be on your Redbox, and knock yourself out. Yeah, but this is definitely worth seeing. I'm sure Sci-Fi will throw it out there again if they haven't already, since we've recorded this. And
yeah, I would be curious to find out too how it did as far as ratings go for the slot that they put it in. They put it on St. Patty's Day at night, 8 p.m. I think Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. So it's a good time slot for it was a Sunday night, so which is a little hard on it, but it's still a good time slot to put it in. I'd be curious to find out if it did a good rating or not. As far as sci-fi goes, I don't know what their ratings typically are. I imagine they're not high. They're probably in the ones or whatever. But I'd like to see if it got a good view, because if it did, that gives them more incentive to do more. And yeah, I think it was worth it. Again,
I'll be curious to see if they ever do release any financials on it, how it does, because I think it seems to be well received. Again, we've joked about it, but it's got incredible ratings on the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, so people like it. So I'm sure we'll get another one. I just hope they don't go too fast with it to where we get something that's bad.
Yeah, they can't go the route that they went with 2, 3, and 4 on the previous incarnation of the Leprechaun. They got to think about it, and I think the wise thing would be to pick up where we left off, have him show up in Bismarck, and have Tori or Lila show up to kind of stop him.
Right, that would make smart. Like pick up right where this leaves off, which means they do need to do this one sooner rather than later, because she's going to age out of it pretty soon. So
well, sure, yeah.
So
they got a couple of years.
Yeah, they got time to do it, and I'm hoping that they will do it that way. So that's my hope as well. Well, we both liked it. There's our review of Leprechaun Returns. Brian, thanks again for coming on the show. Tell folks how they can follow your stuff.
Yeah, I am available on briansvinylrecords.com or briansvinylrecords.blogspot.com is where my blog is at. I also do a podcast called, Brian's Vinyl Records. And that covers a lot of things from vinyl topics to music. So all sorts of different things you can find there. Just getting that podcast going, hoping to come up with a bunch of new topics that'll interest a lot of people. And Jay, we do a show on there called Tracks, which is a look at some of our favorite albums track by track. We'll be doing more of those throughout the year. So excited about that as well. So that's where you can find my stuff.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to our review of Leprechaun Returns. Again, that's a soft launch back here for the Film Strip podcast and part of our Leprechaun series. Right now, you can find the rest of the Leprechaun series on our website, filmstrippodcast.com, and we're updating the iTunes feeds and getting ready to have all the other feeds active, and so you'll be able to find the whole series again soon right in your favorite podcatcher. But right now, I just want to say thanks again for coming back with us here at Film Strip. We've been away for a while, and we missed you, and we're glad to be back in the podcasting fray again as a core, and me, Brian, Nick, and Ron are ready to bring you a whole new slew of reviews the way we've done for years on Film Strip. Again, you can keep up with us on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, filmstrippod. And then look for us on Facebook. We got a brand new Facebook page. Just search Film Strip Podcast. You'll be able to join in and see episode announcements. And we'll also do some special things there as well, just for folks that follow us. And we really appreciate your support. As always, Film Strip is free, and it's for the fans, by the fans. That's what we're here to give you. It's a lot of content that we enjoy, and we hope you'll enjoy it as well. So thanks for joining me and Brian on this review of Leprechaun Returns, and we will see you soon this spring for the official relaunch of the Film Strip Podcast.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. Please leave us a positive review and link up with us on Facebook. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.